I'd been working with a German Shepherd all afternoon, teaching bite release commands to a client who worked security downtown. The dog was smart, picked things up fast, and by the time we finished the session, both the owner and I were satisfied with the progress. I packed up my training gear, said goodbye, and headed home. It was a Tuesday, around 6 in the evening. Traffic was light, and I was looking forward to a quiet night, maybe throwing something on the grill, watching some TV. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed my wife's car was there, along with her daughter's. Nothing unusual about that. The girl was 18, still living with us while she figured out what she wanted to do after high school. I grabbed my duffel bag from the trunk and walked up to the front door. The second I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. My wife was standing in the living room, arms crossed, face twisted in anger I'd never seen before. Her daughter was on the couch, crying, makeup running down her face. When they both looked at me, I felt the temperature in the room drop. "What's going on?" I asked, setting my bag down slowly. My wife didn't answer right away. She just stared at me, breathing hard through her nose. Then she pointed at her daughter. "Tell him what you told me," she said, voice shaking. The girl looked up at me with red, puffy eyes. "I can't believe you'd do this to me," she said between sobs. "I trusted you." I blinked, genuinely confused. "Do what? What are you talking about?" That's when my wife exploded. She started listing things. Inappropriate comments, uncomfortable stares, entering her daughter's room without knocking. Things that made my stomach turn just hearing them, because I knew immediately none of it was true. Not a single word. "Hold on," I said, raising my hands. "This is insane. I never did any of that. Where is this coming from? Don't you dare call her a liar," my wife screamed, stepping closer. "She came to me in tears an hour ago. She's been afraid to say anything because she didn't want to ruin our marriage, but she couldn't take it anymore." I looked at the girl, who wouldn't meet my eyes now. She just kept crying into her hands, playing the part perfectly. "This is a misunderstanding," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. "We need to sit down and talk about this calmly." "There's nothing to talk about," my wife said coldly. "I want you out. Now. Out. You're kicking me out of my own house over accusations you didn't even let me defend myself against." "My daughter doesn't lie to me," she said, voice like ice. "And I will always believe her over you." I stood there for a moment, letting that sink in. Years of marriage, years of being a father figure to this girl, and my wife didn't even give me 5 minutes to explain. She'd already made her decision. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll pack a bag." "No," she said. "You leave now. Take your keys and go. You can get your things later when I'm here to supervise." I looked at her daughter one more time. She was peeking through her fingers, watching me. For just a second, I saw something in her expression. Not fear, not trauma, something else. Satisfaction, maybe. Then she buried her face again and sobbed louder. I pulled out my phone and called my friend Garrett, someone I'd known since high school. He answered on the second ring. "Hey man, I need a place to crash tonight," I said, walking toward the door. "I'll explain when I get there." My wife followed me to the door. "If you even think about contacting her, I'll file a restraining order," she said. "Stay away from us." I turned and looked at her one last time. "You're making a huge mistake," I said. "But you'll figure that out eventually." I walked out, got in my truck, and drove to Garrett's apartment across town. The whole way there, my mind was racing. I wasn't angry yet. I was too shocked for that. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to grovel. And I definitely wasn't going to let this stand. If she wanted me gone, fine. But she was going to regret not hearing my side of the story. Because when the truth came out, and it always does, I was going to make sure there was no coming back from this. I parked outside Garrett's building and sat in the truck for a minute, staring at my phone. No calls, no texts, nothing. She really believed I was guilty. After everything we'd been through together, she took her daughter's word without a second thought. I got out of the truck and headed upstairs. Garrett opened the door before I even knocked, concern written all over his face. "What happened?" he asked. "Got accused of something I didn't do," I said, stepping inside. "And my wife threw me out without even letting me explain." Garrett shook his head. "Man, that's messed up. You need anything?" "Yeah," I said, pulling out my phone again. "The number for a good divorce attorney." He raised his eyebrows. "You sure you want to go there right away?" I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Garrett let me use his spare bedroom, no questions asked. That first night, I barely slept. I kept replaying the scene in my head, trying to understand where it all went wrong. By morning, I had a plan. First thing I did was call a law firm downtown that a client had recommended months ago. The receptionist put me through to an attorney named Mr. Brennan. I explained the situation in detail. He listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. You need to document everything, he said. Every interaction, every text message, every phone call. Don't delete anything. And don't contact your wife or her daughter directly. Everything goes through me from this point forward. Understood, I said. I'll need you to come in tomorrow morning. Bring any financial documents you have access to. Bank statements, tax returns, anything showing joint accounts or assets. We need to get ahead of this before she does. I spent the rest of that day gathering paperwork. Fortunately, I'd always been organized when it came to finances. I had copies of everything on my laptop. Bank statements going back 3 years. Mortgage documents. Insurance policies. Tax returns. I organized it all into folders and backed everything up on a thumb drive. Then I started going through my phone. Text messages with my wife, with her daughter, with friends and family. I screenshotted conversations that showed our normal family dynamic. Birthday messages. Casual check-ins. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing that could be twisted into something it wasn't. I found messages from just 2 weeks ago where the girl had asked me to help her practice for her driver's test. I'd spent an entire Saturday teaching her parallel parking in the Target lot. She'd thanked me, said I was patient and kind. I screenshotted all of it. Garrett came home from work around 5 and found me at his kitchen table, surrounded by papers and my laptop. You doing okay? He asked, grabbing a beer from the fridge. Just getting my ducks in a row, I said. Can I ask you something? Sure. You've been around us plenty of times. My wife, her daughter, me. Did you ever see anything that would make you think I was inappropriate with that girl? Garrett sat down across from me and shook his head firmly. Man, are you kidding? You treated her like your own kid. Always respectful, always appropriate. I never saw anything that raised a red flag. Would you be willing to put that in writing if it came to it? Absolutely, he said without hesitation. Whatever you need. That meant more to me than I could express. I had at least one person who'd back me up if this turned into something bigger. My phone buzzed. It was my wife. I stared at the screen for a moment, then opened the message. We need to talk about when you can get your things. I don't want you here when I'm alone. I didn't respond. Mr. Brennan had been clear. No direct contact. Instead, I forwarded the message to him with a note. She's already trying to control the narrative. He replied within minutes. Perfect. Save everything. Don't engage. The next day, I met with Mr. Brennan at his office. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, but sharp as a knife. He reviewed everything I'd brought, nodding occasionally, making notes. This is good, he said. Very good. You've got a clean record here. No history of violence, no prior accusations, steady employment. How long have you been married? For years, I said. I've known her daughter since she was 14. And in those 4 years, has the daughter ever shown signs of being manipulative? Lying to get her way? Anything like that? I thought about it. Yeah, actually. Small things. Lying about where she was going. Blaming other people when she got caught doing something wrong. My wife always made excuses for her, said she was just being a teenager. Mr. Brennan leaned back in his chair. That's a pattern we can use. Not to attack a kid, but to establish credibility. If she has a history of dishonesty, it raises reasonable doubt about these accusations. So what's the next step? I asked. We file for divorce immediately. We don't wait for her to make the first move. We establish that you're the one taking decisive action here, not running away guilty. We also make it clear that you're open to any investigation if she wants to pursue legal charges, because you have nothing to hide. She threatened a restraining order. I said, let her file for one. She won't have any evidence to support it, and it'll backfire on her. But in the meantime, you stay away. Don't go to the house. Don't contact her or the daughter. Let me handle all communication. I signed the retainer agreement right there. Mr. Brennan said he'd have the divorce papers drafted within a week. Over the next few days, my wife tried calling and texting multiple times. I ignored every single one. I knew it was driving her crazy, but I didn't care. She'd made her choice. Now she had to live with it. I focused on work. My clients didn't care about my personal drama. They cared about their dogs, and I was good at what I did. Training kept me grounded. There's something about working with animals that clears your head. They don't judge. They don't lie. They just respond to consistency and clear communication. One of my regular clients, a woman named Violet who had a hyperactive Labrador, asked if I was doing okay. I must have looked tired. Just going through some stuff at home, I said, keeping it vague. Well, you're still the best trainer in town, she said with a smile. Whatever it is, I hope it works out. Thanks, I said. I appreciate that. 2 weeks in, Garrett asked me if I'd heard from my wife. She's been texting, I said, but I'm not responding. My attorney said to let him handle everything. That's probably smart, Garrett said. But man, she's got to be losing her mind wondering what you're doing. Good, I said. Let her wonder. 3 weeks after I'd been kicked out, my phone rang. It was my wife. I almost declined the call, but something made me answer. Hello, I said, keeping my voice neutral. It's me, she said. There was a pause. I think we need to talk. About what? About you coming home. About us working through this. I almost laughed. Working through what exactly? You threw me out based on lies. You didn't give me a chance to defend myself. What's changed? I just think, she said slowly, like she was choosing her words carefully, that maybe you've had some time to reflect on your behavior. And if you're ready to apologize and commit to counseling, we can move forward. There it was. She thought she'd broken me. She thought 3 weeks of silence meant I was desperate to come crawling back. You want me to apologize, I said. Yes, to both of us. And we need to set boundaries going forward. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. Okay, I said. Let's meet in person. Tomorrow. I'll come by the house. Really? She sounded surprised, relieved even. Yeah, we should handle this face to face. Okay, she said, her voice softening. What time? How about 2 in the afternoon? That works. I'll be here. I hung up and immediately called Mr. Brennan. The papers ready? I asked. Signed and notarized. You sure you want to do this? Absolutely, I said. She thinks I'm coming back to apologize. Instead, I'm showing up with you and a divorce petition. Mr. Brennan chuckled darkly. I'll meet you there at 1:45. This should be interesting. I met Mr. Brennan at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the house. He was already there, sitting in his car with a leather briefcase on the passenger seat. I pulled up next to him and got out. You ready for this? He asked, stepping out of his vehicle. More than ready, I said. We walked to the house together. It felt strange approaching my own front door like this, like I was visiting a place I used to know. Mr. Brennan carried the briefcase casually, like we were just 2 guys stopping by for a chat. I rang the doorbell. Didn't feel right using my key anymore. My wife answered almost immediately. She'd clearly been waiting. Her face was made up, hair done. She was smiling when she opened the door, but the smile died the second she saw the man standing next to me. Who's this? She asked, voice suddenly cautious. This is my attorney, I said calmly. Mr. Brennan, can we come in? Her face went pale. Your attorney? What are you talking about? I thought we were going to talk. We are talking, I said. Can we come in, or do you want to do this on the porch? She stepped back, confused and clearly thrown off balance. We walked into the living room. Her daughter was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. When she looked up and saw me with a lawyer, her eyes went wide. What's going on? My wife asked, crossing her arms defensively. Mr. Brennan opened his briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope. He handed it to her professionally. No drama, no theatrics. These are divorce papers, he said. You're being served. Everything you need to know is in there, including the court date and how to respond if you choose to contest. My wife stared at the envelope like it was a snake. Divorce? Are you serious right now? Completely serious, I said. You made your decision 3 weeks ago when you threw me out without even hearing my side. I'm just making mine now. But I called you to work things out, she said, voice rising. I was willing to forgive you if you apologized. Forgive me, I said, keeping my tone level. For what exactly? For something I didn't do? You believed lies without a single shred of evidence. You destroyed our marriage the second you chose her word over mine without even asking questions. Her daughter stood up from the couch, phone clutched in her hand. Mom, I told you what happened. Why is he acting like the victim here? I didn't even look at her. I kept my eyes on my wife. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to read those papers. You're going to contact your own attorney if you want to fight this. But I'm done. I'm not coming back. I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do. And I'm definitely not spending another second in a marriage where I'm guilty until proven innocent. You can't just leave, My wife said, her voice breaking. We've been together for 4 years. We have a life together. Had a life? I corrected. You ended it when you kicked me out. I'm just finishing what you started. Mr. Brennan cleared his throat. The papers outlined the division of assets. Since the house was purchased before the marriage and remains in your name, my client is not pursuing any claim to it. However, joint accounts will need to be divided, and any shared assets will be addressed through mediation or court, depending on your level of cooperation. My wife looked at him, then at me, then back at the envelope in her hands. This is insane. You're throwing away our marriage because of one fight. One fight, I said, and for the first time, I let some emotion show. You accused me of being a predator. You kicked me out of my home. You threatened me with a restraining order. That's not a fight. That's character assassination. And you did it without hesitation. Her daughter suddenly burst into tears. This is all my fault, she sobbed, but something about it felt performative. I didn't think you'd leave. I didn't think it would go this far. I finally looked at her. You didn't think at all, I said coldly. But that's not my problem anymore. My wife put a hand on her daughter's shoulder, still holding the envelope with the other. Can we please just talk about this privately? She asked, looking at Mr. Brennan. Without him here? No, I said before he could answer. Anything you need to say to me goes through him now. That's how this works. You're really going to do this? She asked, tears starting to form in her eyes. You're going to destroy our family? I didn't destroy anything, I said. You did that all by yourself. Mr. Brennan closed his briefcase. If you have any questions about the documents, you can contact my office. The number's on the card inside the envelope. I'd recommend getting your own legal representation as soon as possible. We turned to leave. My wife called after me. Wait, just wait a second. I stopped at the door but didn't turn around. Is there anything I can say to change your mind? She asked, voice desperate now. No, I said simply. There isn't. I walked out with Mr. Brennan right behind me. We got to our vehicles without saying a word. Once we were both inside our cars, he rolled down his window. That went exactly as expected, he said. She'll probably try to contact you directly. Don't respond. Let her sit with this for a while. I won't, I said. Thanks for being here. That's what you pay me for, he said with a slight smile. I'll be in touch. I drove back to Garrett's place. My hands were steady on the wheel. No shaking, no second guessing. I'd done what needed to be done. When I walked into the apartment, Garrett looked up from the couch. How'd it go? She didn't see it coming, I said, grabbing a water from the fridge. Thought I was showing up to beg for forgiveness. And instead you showed up with divorce papers, Garrett said, shaking his head. Man, I almost feel bad for her. Don't, I said, sitting down in the chair across from him. She made her bed. Now she gets to sleep in it. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Text from my wife. Then calls. I silenced it and set it face down on the table. She's going to lose her mind over this, Garrett said. Probably, I said. But that's not my concern anymore. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I actually felt like I could breathe. The calls and texts didn't stop. Over the next 2 days, my phone lit up constantly. My wife, her friends, even her sister tried reaching out. I blocked the sister's number after she sent me a long message about how I was abandoning the family. Mr. Brennan had been clear. No engagement. Let them spiral. On the 3rd day after serving the papers, I was at a client's house working with a Belgian Malinois when my phone rang. It was Mr. Brennan. Got a minute? He asked. Yeah, just finished a session. What's up? Your wife's attorney contacted me. She wants to arrange a meeting. Says it's urgent and she's willing to discuss settlement terms. I leaned against my truck. Already? I figured she'd drag this out. So did I, he said. But apparently something happened. She sounded desperate on the voicemail her attorney left. Mentioned something about new information. What kind of information? Didn't say, but she wants to meet tomorrow morning. Are you available? I'll make myself available, I said. Where? My office. 10 a.m. I'll handle most of the talking, but you need to be there. I showed up 15 minutes early the next morning. Mr. Brennan was already in the conference room, reviewing notes. He looked up when I walked in. Fair warning, he said. She might try to use emotions to sway you. Stay focused on the facts. I'm not changing my mind, I said. Good. Because whatever she's about to say, it doesn't change what she did to you. At exactly 10 o'clock, my wife walked in with her attorney, a middle-aged woman in a navy suit who introduced herself as Ms. Whitaker. My wife looked terrible, eyes red and puffy, No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wouldn't look directly at me. We all sat down. Ms. Whitaker opened a folder and started with standard legal language about mediation and settlement discussions. Then she paused and looked at my wife. My client has something she'd like to say, Ms. Whitaker said, and I've advised her that this conversation is off the record for now. My wife finally looked up at me. Her hands were shaking. I made a terrible mistake, she said, voice barely above a whisper. The biggest mistake of my life. I didn't respond, just waited. My daughter, she continued, struggling to get the words out. She lied. About everything. She admitted it yesterday. The room went completely silent. Even Mr. Brennan, who rarely showed surprise, raised his eyebrows. She lied, I said slowly. My wife nodded, tears streaming down her face now. She broke down 2 nights ago, after you left with the divorce papers. She couldn't handle the guilt anymore. She told me the truth. None of it happened. She made it all up. Why? I asked, keeping my voice flat. Because she wanted her actual father back, my wife said, choking on the words. She thought if she got rid of you, I'd go back to him. She actually believed that removing you from the picture would fix our broken family. She's 18, but she's still so immature. She didn't think about the consequences. She just... Stop, I said, holding up a hand. I don't want to hear excuses for her. She's 18 years old. She knew exactly what she was doing. My wife buried her face in her hands. Ms. Whitaker handed her a tissue. My client understands the severity of what occurred, Ms. Whitaker said carefully, and she's prepared to make a statement to that effect if needed. The daughter has also agreed to write a formal retraction. That's great, I said, leaning back in my chair. But it doesn't change anything. My wife's head snapped up. What do you mean it doesn't change anything? She lied. You were right. I was wrong. We can fix this. No, I said firmly. We can't. But I'm apologizing, she said desperately. I'm telling you I made a mistake. I should have listened to you. I should have asked questions. I know that now. You're 3 weeks too late, I said. You destroyed this marriage when you chose to believe lies without evidence. When you threw me out of my own home. When you threatened me with a restraining order. The fact that you know the truth now doesn't erase what you did. Please, she begged, reaching across the table toward me. Please, we can go to counseling. We can work through this. I love you. I looked at her hand stretched toward me and didn't move. You didn't love me when it mattered, I said quietly. You didn't trust me when it counted. And you showed me exactly where I stand in your life. Below your daughter, no matter what. Even when she's lying to your face. That's not fair, she protested. She's my child. I was trying to protect her. From what? I said, voice hardening. From the man who spent 4 years treating her like his own daughter? Who taught her to drive, helped her with homework, took her to her school events when her actual father couldn't be bothered to show up. Yeah, real dangerous guy. Mr. Brennan put a hand on the table. I think we should take a moment. No, I said, standing up. We're done here. The divorce proceeds as planned. My wife stood too, frantic now. You can't mean that. She confessed. The truth is out. We can fix this. The truth was out 3 weeks ago, I said. I told you I was innocent. You just didn't believe me. Now you want me to come back because you finally figured out what I already knew? That's not how this works. Ms. Whitaker cleared her throat. Perhaps if we discuss the settlement terms, we can find common ground. There's no common ground, I said. I'm not interested in reconciliation. File whatever response you want to the divorce petition. Contest it if you feel like wasting money. But I'm moving forward either way. I walked toward the door. My wife followed me. What about everything we built together? She said, grabbing my arm. 4 years of marriage, just gone. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. You ended those 4 years the moment you chose to believe a lie over your husband, I said. I'm just signing the paperwork. I pulled my arm free and walked out of the conference room. I heard her crying behind me, heard Ms. Whitaker trying to calm her down. None of it mattered. Mr. Brennan caught up with me in the hallway. You handled that well, he said. Stayed calm. Didn't give them anything to work with. Is she going to fight the divorce? I asked. Doubtful, he said. She knows she doesn't have a leg to stand on. My guess is she'll sign within the week, and this will be over quickly. Good, I said, because I'm ready to move on. I drove back to Garrett's place and sat in the truck for a few minutes before going inside. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. I'm so sorry. Please don't do this. We can fix it. I deleted the message without responding. Then I blocked her number. The next week was quieter than I expected. No more phone calls. No more desperate texts. Either my wife had finally accepted reality, or Ms. Whitaker had told her to stop making things worse. Either way, I appreciated the silence. I focused on rebuilding my routine. Mornings started with training sessions, afternoons with administrative work, evenings helping Garrett around his apartment. He never complained about me being there, but I knew I needed to find my own place soon. Started looking at rentals in a different part of town, somewhere with enough space for me to store my equipment and maybe set up a small training area in the backyard. One afternoon, I was working with a young couple who'd just adopted a rescue pit bull. The dog had anxiety issues, didn't trust people easily. I spent 2 hours showing them proper desensitization techniques, how to build confidence through positive reinforcement. By the end of the session, the dog was taking treats from their hands and actually wagging her tail. "You're really good at this," the wife said as they were leaving. "How long have you been training dogs?" "About 8 years professionally," I said, "but I've been around them my whole life." "Well, you have a gift," she said. "Thank you for being so patient with us." After they left, I sat in my truck and thought about that word. Patient. Funny how I could spend hours working with a traumatized animal, slowly building trust, never rushing the process. But when it came to my own marriage, patience hadn't mattered. One accusation, 0 investigation, instant judgment. Mr. Brennan called me later that evening. "Got some news," he said. She signed the papers. I set down the water bottle I'd been drinking from. She signed? Just like that. Her attorney called this afternoon. Said her client wants to move forward with an uncontested divorce. No fight over assets. No custody issues obviously. Clean break. She's accepting the terms as written. When does it finalize? Court date is set for 6 weeks from now. Standard waiting period. After that, you're officially divorced. 6 weeks. A month and a half. Then it would all be over. "Thanks for letting me know," I said. "One more thing," Mr. Brennan added. "Her attorney mentioned that your wife wanted to pass along a message. I told her no direct communication, but she asked me to relay it anyway." "What's the message?" "She said to tell you she understands why you're doing this, and she's sorry for not believing you. She said she hopes someday you can forgive her, even if you never come back." I thought about that for a moment. "You don't need to pass along my response," I said, "because I don't have one." "Fair enough," Mr. Brennan said. "I'll be in touch as we get closer to the court date." After hanging up, I told Garrett the news. He was in the kitchen making dinner, some kind of pasta dish that actually smelled decent. "She signed?" he said, looking surprised. "Didn't think she'd give up that easy." "She doesn't have a choice," I said. "She knows what she did, and she knows I'm not coming back." Garrett plated the food, and we sat at his small dining table. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure. Do you think you'll ever forgive her? Not get back together, I mean. Just forgive her." I considered the question while eating. "Maybe eventually," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it definitely doesn't mean letting someone back into your life after they proved they can't be trusted." "That's fair," Garrett said. "I just know you, man. You're not the type to hold grudges." "I'm not holding a grudge," I said. "I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." Over the next few weeks, I found a decent rental house on the east side of town. 2 bedrooms, fenced backyard, garage for my equipment. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I signed the lease and started moving my stuff in. Garrett helped me haul boxes and furniture, mostly things I'd picked up from storage and a few new purchases. "This is nice," Garrett said, looking around the empty living room. "Fresh start." "That's the plan," I said. I'd arranged with my wife through our attorneys to pick up the rest of my belongings from the house. She agreed to be out during the scheduled time. When I showed up with Garrett in a borrowed truck, the house felt like a museum. Everything exactly where I'd left it, but foreign somehow. We loaded up my tools, my clothes, some furniture that had been mine before the marriage. I grabbed a few books from the shelf, some photos of my family. Garrett found me standing in the garage, looking at my workbench. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just weird being back here." "You taking the bench?" "No," I said. "Built it here. It stays here." We finished loading everything and drove back to my new place. As we unloaded, I got a text from an unknown number. Opened it cautiously. "This is your wife's daughter. I know you probably hate me, and I deserve it. But I wanted you to know I'm genuinely sorry for what I did. I ruined everything, and I have to live with that. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I know how badly I messed up." I stared at the message for a long moment. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell her exactly how much damage she'd caused. But what would be the point? She was 18, stupid, and selfish. Nothing I said would change that. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Who was that? Garrett asked, carrying in a box. Nobody important, I said. The court date arrived faster than I expected. I met Mr. Brennan outside the courthouse wearing the one suit I owned. My wife was there with Ms. Whitaker, standing on the opposite side of the hallway. We made eye contact briefly. She looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't. The hearing itself took less than 30 minutes. The judge reviewed the paperwork, confirmed that both parties agreed to the terms, and signed the decree. Just like that, 4 years of marriage dissolved into a legal document. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Brennan shook my hand. That's it, he said. You're officially single again. Thanks for everything, I said. You did the right thing, he told me. Not everyone has the strength to walk away from something that toxic. I watched my wife and her attorney walk to their car. She looked back once, but I didn't wave. Didn't acknowledge her at all. Then she got in the car and drove away. Garrett met me for lunch afterward at a diner near my new place. How do you feel, he asked. Relieved, I said honestly. Like I can finally move forward. You going to start dating again? Eventually, I said. But not for a while. I need to just be alone for a bit. Figure out who I am outside of that marriage. That's probably smart, Garrett said. For what it's worth, I think you handled this whole thing perfectly. You didn't let emotions cloud your judgment. You did what you needed to do. Thanks, man, I said. And thanks for letting me crash at your place. I owe you. You don't owe me anything, he said. That's what friends are for. I drove home that afternoon and walked into my house. My house. Not our house. Mine. I looked around at the half-unpacked boxes, the furniture that needed arranging, the walls that needed decorating. It wasn't much yet, but it was a start. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could actually breathe. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was running my own training business from the house. Converted the garage into a proper workspace, set up a small obstacle course in the backyard. Word of mouth brought in more clients than I could handle. Turns out, being good at what you do and showing up consistently matters more than anything else. I ran into my wife once, completely by accident, at a grocery store. She was in the produce section. Our eyes met across the aisle. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then closed it. I nodded once, polite but distant, and kept walking. Didn't feel angry. Didn't feel sad. Just felt nothing. That's when I knew I'd actually moved on. A few weeks later, Garrett told me he'd heard through mutual friends that my wife's daughter had moved out, gone to live with her actual father in another state. Apparently, the guilt had been too much. My wife was living alone in that house now, dealing with the consequences of believing a lie. I didn't take any satisfaction from it. It just was what it was. I started going to the gym more regularly, picked up some hobbies I dropped during the marriage, joined a recreational softball league, made new friends who didn't know anything about my past. That felt good, starting fresh with people who only knew the current version of me. One evening, I was sitting on my back porch watching a client's German Shepherd run through drills when my phone buzzed. Email from my attorney. The subject line read, "Final accounting, case closed." I opened it. Everything had been divided. All accounts settled. The case was officially closed. I was completely, legally, and financially separated from my old life. I sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. Then I deleted the email and tossed my phone on the table. The dog brought me a tennis ball, tail wagging, ready for another round. I smiled and threw it across the yard. "Good boy," I said as he took off running. I thought about everything that had happened. The accusation, the betrayal, the divorce. All of it could have broken me, could have made me bitter and angry and distrustful. But I chose differently. I chose to protect my peace, walk away from toxicity, and rebuild on my own terms. Some people might say I gave up too easily, that I should have fought harder for the marriage. But those people don't understand something fundamental. You can't fight for someone who won't fight for you. And you can't trust someone who showed you they'll believe the worst about you without evidence. The sun was setting over the fence line, painting the sky orange and pink. The dog dropped the ball at my feet again, panting happily. I threw it one more time and leaned back in my chair. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough.